Old Time Gray here made me a welding fixture table for the top of my industrial strength workmate. I made it out of 1/4 inch plate and some small pieces of channel, and it's set up to use T-nuts, just conventional T-nuts. It's strong enough to fixture things to very solidly, but it's light enough where you can still move it around. It covers all the wood, all the bamboo, and it's set up so that it can be used on a future bench should I decide to. Now, most weld tables, fixture tables, have slots that go clear to the floor, but since this sits on top of bamboo, I don't want hot weld slag or hot berries falling on bamboo. I've already burned it enough. So I went with T-slots. The other thing is the tables that have slots that go all the way through, inevitably something falls on your foot. A hot piece of steel, some weld slag, something, and you get a nice little burn on your foot. So this won't let that happen. I'll show you how I made it. Let's get started with a little bit of cereal box engineering. Grape nuts. So get you a box of those. Okay, our table is going to have 6 pads and 3 T-slots. The pads are going to be made out of this 1/4 inch plate that I have. I've got a few chunks of 12 by 12, 3/4, 1/4 inch. That'll make up the pads. And then the T-slots are going to be made out of this channel that I also have a hunk of. The channel pieces are going to be full length this way, and then 3 little segments this way. And there they are, shown in 2x size. So you got a plate and a plate looking at the side of it. And then the T-slot sitting in the channel with the channel welded to the bottom of the plates. So I need 2 pieces of channel, 3 little segments of channel, and I'm going to get that spine all welded up first. Our overall dimensions are going to be 24.5 roughly by 16 roughly, and I'm saying roughly in case I screw up. Welcome to the cutting department. So I'm using my table saw with a steel blade on it. Now to cut the lengths, I've set up a block of wood against my rip fence so I can align it with my miter gauge to the length I want. Just added 3/4 inch. And then I can make my cut, shift the piece over, shut off the saw, and let everything stop. That way the steel isn't up against a running blade, and I'm not trying to push this piece through between the blade and the fence. You do that, you're asking for a gut full of steel. And also, these things throw chips, not sawdust, so suit up. I'm setting up the T-slots on a piece of dirty and burned plywood, and here's a T-nut, and you can see that it'll ride in the channel this way, but to make it ride in the channel this way, I need to plow out these pieces. So I'll mark it with a Sharpie, and I'll go nibble that out on the table saw. First thing I'm going to do is set the blade height to be the same as the channel height. Now I'll make a test cut. I just got it so it's kissing the bottom of the web. Now I'm going to nibble away this middle part. Welcome to the grinding department. Now I got these mostly plowed out and kind of reset up on my grill table here. So I'm going to prep the edges for welding just with the angle grinder. A lot of setup going on here. So we're back on the dirty burned plywood. And I cut a gauge block out of another piece of dirty plywood. And I'm setting it square from this T-slot to this T-slot. And I'll tack this together. And then set this square, tack these together. Set this square, tack these together, and so on. You can see I've made this piece my reference piece. It's clamped down tight, and then I'll move these little pieces around to get everything just square and righteous. So these two are ready to go. Then I'll set that one up. Here it is tacked up. So I'm going to let it cool off a little bit. It's a little bit warm. And then I'm going to finish weld it and then grind out all of these interior passages so the T-nuts can travel freely front to back, side to side. So I'll weld all these corners inside and out, grind it up. I'll be back at you when that's done. Here's the skeletal T-slots all welded together and grinded up, and I sanded out the insides, make them nice and smooth. so the T-nuts glide in there easily. Now I need to cut the pads, and I'm going to cut them out of these pieces of 1/4-inch plate that I got some time ago. I'm going to cut the middle ones first because they're the most critical. And just going between the inner cords of the inner surfaces of the T-nuts. Looks like they want to be about 5 and just a wee bit over 5. I'm going to go 5 1/16. On this 1/4-inch plate, this was cut with a brake, or sorry, a shear. So it's got a sharp edge on the bottom and a rounded edge on the top. I'm going to try and keep the rounded edges facing up. So nice friendly surface for your fingers. So here's the pad, and here's 4 T-nuts. Yeah, that's perfect. We're sandpaper away from making that fit. And there they all are. There's all the pads just sitting there. T-nuts in place. Now I'm going to tack these in place. Make sure they're all positioned just righteous. And all the T-nuts move back and forth. Press all the edges. Make them all nice and smooth. Deburr everything. To locate the pads, I've got the little T-nuts placed around the perimeter of this pad. I'm going to use this one as my setup. And I stuck a little piece of cardstock between the T-nut and the edge of the pad. Make sure it can slide and stays nice and even and everything looks straight and easy to move. Then I'm just going to tack it from underneath, lay the next one in place, tack it from underneath, go all the way around, then flip it over and tack weld everything together. Here it is upside down. I just tacked it in, threw a few dimes in here and there just to hold it together. I'm going to let it cool. It's still pretty warm. And then I'll finish weld it. So I just got to decide how I want to finish weld it. There it is, all finish welded. Kind of a mix of stringers, dimes, and other kind of sloppy welds. I'm going to let this thing cool off and then grind off all the weld berries and knock all the junk off. You see what's going on here is my steel actually wasn't cut all quite the same size, so this piece is like an 1/8 inch longer than these two. So I'm simply going to scribe a line. and chop it off with my skill saw. Now I'm going to confirm that my T-nuts slide all the way through all the T-slots. Nice and easy. And also on my T-nuts, I'm going to knock the corners off them just so they fit nicely into the fabricated T-slots. Okay, everything's working just righteous. For extra hold downs, I'm going to take some 3/8 carriage bolts and just knock the edges of the heads off them. Attach it to the Workmate. I'm going to use these dog holes that are already in the top, but the plastic dogs that come with the Workmate really aren't going to be worth a damn for welding. So instead I'm going to use 3/4 bolts and washers. I'm simply going to drop a 3/4 bolt in the hole, and then I'm going to weld 4 little cleats onto the bottom of the pads so that these bolt dogs can grab cleats. On top of that, I'm going to use this washer to suspend the whole thing just slightly off of the bamboo surface, so I don't burn the wood any more than I already have. I'm going to space them so they're less than the bolts with the high points of the hexes pointed inwards, so that if I start clamping with them crooked, they'll straighten themselves out. So I'll make them 9.5. So 16 minus 9.5 is 7.5. No, 6.5. And 6.5 divided by 2 is 3.25. Okay, those are 16 on center. 24.5 minus 16 is 8.5. So 4.25 from each side. Cleats go right there. Okay, sorry for the handheld shaky shot here, but you can see this is an extreme close-up. We're looking at the cleat grabbing the nut, or sorry, bolt head right there. Setup. Just put in our 3/4 inch dog bolts. Kind of center it. Just turn the little plastic cranks. Let them grip on. There you go. So usage. So I just got these two pieces of, I think they're from a piece of office furniture or something. I found them in the trash. So let's just say I wanted to weld them together. So take my specially prepped carriage bolt and a rusty railroad spike and a hardware store framing bracket. And then take a T-nut, just a 3/8 anything with a washer on it. So they want to go together like that. There you go, nice and solid. Throw the coal to it, zip, 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 zip. So there she is, all done. I'm going to leave the finish just like this. This thing's going to have a rough life. It's going to get burn marks on it. I'm going to weld stuff to it. It's going to get beat on. So I'm just going to leave the mill finish right on there. So it's still portable. It probably weighs 25, 30 pounds, maybe a little bit more, but it's still light enough where I can pick it up, carry it with one arm, and move it where I want it, put the Workmate where I want it, put it back on the Workmate, got a weld table wherever I need one. This was fun. I had a lot of fun making this. So this baby's going into use, going into service. I'm going to call this one good, and it's on to the next project. I will see you there and then.